Hello, 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 and welcome back to the channel. I am so excited for today's episode because it is going to be our first ever in a new series called Hot Girl Horror 101. I wanted to start this series because I am deep in my horror era. Honestly, I've kind of always been deep in my horror era. Not the kind where life is like falling apart, but the kind where I'm like learning, exploring, figuring out why I love being terrified for fun, because we need to get to the bottom of this. I have basically loved horror for as long as I can honestly remember. Every single birthday party I had growing up was basically an all-nighter fueled by Mountain Dew. God, Surge. Do you guys remember Surge? Lord. Aging myself here. But fueled by some form of pop, because I'm from the Midwest. Cheap pizza and horror movies that probably we should not have been watching at the age of 13 or maybe even younger, honestly. But here we are. Horror feels extremely nostalgic for me. It doesn't even matter if it's something brand new coming out this year. The feeling that horror gives me is nostalgic. And the more and more that I dive into it and the more and more that I read and consume, the more I realize just how big horror really is. And it's not just about being afraid. There are so many subgenres, vibes, tropes, flavors of fear. It's endless and it's so fucking cool. So this series is going to be about diving into that world, seeing what makes horror tick, what makes it meaningful, and why we, especially the girlies, flock to it. Like that's really what I want to get to the bottom of. And I am not a gatekeeper. I think that a lot of times these niche horror communities can be very gatekeepy. So I thought it would be really fun to just kind of document this as part of my creative process, put it out as like a class. So we're going to do, Hot Girl Horror 101, like I said. And I thought for episode 1, nothing would be more perfect than talking about horror for women. The themes, the fears, the catharsis, the good for her moments, because nothing tastes better than justice except for like maybe revenge, which there's a lot of in female horror and horror for women. Okay, so in today's lesson, what we are going to be covering are the themes of horror in women, the fears, the rage, survival stories, things that resonate deeply, typically with women. We do have some required texts that I'll go over towards the end of today's video, essentially recommendations if you are wanting to deep dive a little bit more into this kind of area of horror, learn a little bit more about why these themes come up for women. Really just kind of a curated list. You can think of it as your Hot Girl Horror starter pack, just book recommendations. And then at the end, we'll talk about our first homework assignment, which is to pick one of the themes we talk about, pick a book that fits that theme, and just kind of explore it. Do a little bit of a deep dive of your own and tell me why you're picking that. By the end of this video, you will understand the core fears that horror taps into for women specifically, and you're going to have a curated list to start your own journey. Okay, so let's dive into some of the themes that are kind of found throughout horror that I think resonates with women. So I'm calling it horror for women, but of course it's just horror, right? But I think that there are certain themes, and again, I'm going to touch on 6 of them here today, that are especially important to women. Starting out, I've broken it down into 6 themes that I have identified personally, but I'm sure there are others out there, right? And I've kind of combined a few of them because there's just kind of a lot going on for women in reality. So starting out with number 1, which is bodily autonomy and the horror of control. What I would say is the core fear with this theme is my body isn't mine. And right off the bat, we're striking a nerve with my body isn't mine because that is a current issue women are facing in reality, in the real world. And so this includes things like pregnancy horror, medical gaslighting, which also happens in the real world, changes to your body, losing power over your own body. So things like possession, body horror might fall into this as well. But essentially the core fear at the core of this theme is my body doesn't belong to me. My body is not mine. I'm not in control. So that's a big one. Number 2 is domestic entrapment and relationship terror. I kind of lumped those together because I think a lot of the times they are presented the same in a horror novel. This is like the people closest to me are the ones I should fear the most, right? So like husbands, partners, feeling like someone's kind of controlling your actions or your livelihood. This is things like, marriages that trap, caretaking that consumes, love that becomes obsession. So that's domestic entrapment and relationship terror. The third one we have is feminine rage and monstrous women, which is by far my favorite. I love monstrous women. I love it. I love feminine rage. I love good for her horror. Like that is my go-to. I'm obsessed. It is chef's kiss. The core fear with this theme is what happens when I stop being palatable. I like gave myself goosebumps just saying that. It sounds so cheesy, but that is, women are constantly being told they should be timid, they should be quiet, they should listen. When a woman finally decides to like speak out, they're being a bitch or they're being bossy or you're being emotional. Like women are always being told how to act and to be palatable. And so what happens when we stop being that? Oh God, I love that. So we're talking transformation, revenge, embracing the too much woman, right? Obsessed, literally obsessed. Number 4 is identity dissolution and becoming unseen. The core fear here, I think, is like I'm disappearing inside of my life. And I think that this is something that probably all people at some point in time have felt, but women in particular tend to be the ones who lose themselves in relationships, lose themselves in jobs, lose themselves in motherhood, feel like they're becoming invisible as they're aging, right? So women are constantly trying to figure out what their identity is. So we're talking here like disassociation, masks, doppelgangers, generational trauma, erosion of self, those sorts of vibes. Number 5 is surveillance, vulnerability, and being watched. So this is kind of the opposite of the last one, which is essentially the I'm truly never safe. You know, we always talk about like women choosing the bear over the man, or walking to your car with your key between your knuckles, or having to keep weapons on you. Like the fear of just being a woman because we don't ever really feel safe in the world. So that's kind of what this is. And so this is kind of like the monster isn't always something supernatural. So things like stalking, social media, systems pretending to protect us, things like that. Number 6, and this is the last one I'm going to be covering for today. Again, I know there are others out there and more things we could really talk about, but number 6 is survival in a world not built for you. And I think that this one is present kind of across the board. Like I think a lot of these themes, you know, when we're talking about a specific list of books later on, several of these books are going to hit multiple themes. But for this, the core fear is I have to become extraordinary just to survive. And so I think of this one as almost like the final girl theme because, you know, it's talking about endurance, navigating danger, outlasting the monster, the villain, the baddie, whatever it is, because you've already survived worse. Okay, so those are the themes we're going to be kind of doing a little bit of a deeper dive into. Next, we're going to get into required readings. We'll call it the Hot Girl Horror Starter Pack. So these are some books, some I've read, some I have not read yet, that hit the themes that we just discussed and that I'm kind of doing a deeper dive into and trying to learn and sort of understand so that I can read and critically think about the book, not just read it to enjoy it, right? Because again, there's always a metaphor. Horror is never just to be scared. There's always something underneath it that is the reason it really hits home with certain people. I'm going to start with Come Closer by Sarah Gran. This is a novella, a short story about possession. So it's using possession as a metaphor for a marriage deterioration, basically. It's very, very good. It really is kind of like a psychological thriller, even though it's very supernatural, because this whole book is like this woman unraveling because she believes herself to be possessed by a demon. So I would say that this falls into the categories, you know, themes we're going to see in this book are domestic entrapment for one. Because again, it's like the deterioration of her marriage, and you can kind of see the alignment between her losing her mind even more and the way that her marriage is falling apart. She has a lot of self-loss in this book as well. She's losing her bodily autonomy. So she's also having a little bit of identity dissolution. And so this book is hitting multiple themes right off the bat. It is also very short. It's under 200 pages. So if you want just like a quick read to do like a quick little analysis and kind of dive into some of these themes, I think this is a great starting point. I really loved this book. I put quite a few tags in there, so I annotated that one quite a bit. Now you are going to see some themes of authors across this list because I do have a few faves, and it's because they always hit home for me as a woman. And so the next one on my list is The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas. This one, we're going to see themes of domestic entrapment. We're going to see surveillance, and we're going to see identity dissolution. She's newly married to someone for the sake of like just protecting herself. So that's kind of that identity dissolution. She doesn't really know, like she doesn't really get to control her own life. Her, domestic entrapment, her marriage is trapping her in a life that's not really the one she wants. She thinks it's what she wants because it's what she's being told it's what she wants. Her house hates her, so that sucks. Domestic entrapment again. And then isolation and psychological gaslighting as well. So this character is really kind of going through it, and it really spoke to me specifically as a woman. This is a great book. It's kind of a gothic, haunted, possessed house kind of situation. There's a hot priest, really great yearning in her books. That's besides the point, but really, really recommend. Lots of themes in this one specifically. Another author that you were going to see on this list a couple different times is Rachel Harrison. And I wanted to put Such Sharp Teeth on here because I think this was kind of the first book where I was like, hang on, there's like something to this that is very specific to me as a woman. Like, why am I feeling so much? So this book is about a woman who becomes a werewolf, but the book is not really even about that. Being a werewolf is a metaphor for her childhood trauma, her like generational, like parental trauma, her anger, and then again, she's losing that bodily autonomy. So the themes we're going to see in this book are, of course, feminine rage. She has a lot of anger and trauma from her childhood, relationship with her mother, her sister. I think that's also part of why this book hit home for me a lot. The coincidences were coincidencing. So we're going to see feminine rage. We're going to see bodily autonomy. Those are kind of the key ones in here. Honestly, I would also say we're probably going to see a little bit of a survival in a world not built for you because she has survived worse than what she's going through right now. The next book is one I actually don't own and is on my TBR. It's on my 10 before the end, which I just made a video for. And that is The Yellow Wallpaper. It is also a short read. It is a classic story of a woman who is, medically unwell. I think people kind of assume it might be postpartum depression these days. At least that's what I saw online. And she is essentially being locked in this room by her husband to heal, right? She is kind of losing herself under medical and marital oppression. So this definitely falls into that identity disillusion. Like she doesn't know really who she is. She starts to unravel. She feels like she's losing her mind. Bodily autonomy. She is trapped in this room. Her husband has locked her up and said it's to take care of her. And then also domestic entrapment. So again, we're seeing a lot of different just oppressive themes towards this woman and what she's experienced. And I think the beauty of reading a classic story like this is that we are not only reading a spooky story, but we're getting a bit of the perspective of the author who wrote the book and what it was like for women at that time. So I'm really excited to read this one. I definitely thought it had to go into the list, and I wanted to include some that I have read and some that I haven't, so that maybe we can dive into some together. The next one is another one that I have not picked up and read yet, and that is A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay. This one, we're going to see themes of identity dissolution, surveillance, and domestic entrapment. The main character, there's sort of that perception versus reality. We're going to have family, media, and church trauma in this one, intrusion. And so I think that there's just a lot of controlling happening to the main character. Her name is Marjorie. She's essentially displaying signs of acute schizophrenia, but her family brings in, a priest. They're forcing her to go through these exorcisms. And so, but that bodily autonomy, just kind of overall gross vibes. And especially because she is only 14 years old. Another recommendation I felt like I had to throw on here, and again, I have not read this yet, but I did watch the entire Netflix series, is You by Carolyn Kepnes. I don't know how you say her last name. I'm so sorry. We already kind of understand what this one is about. And again, the book may vary from the show, but in this one, we're going to get surveillance, right? He's literally a stalker. Blah. Domestic entrapment, right? He marries people. He traps them in this life. And again, I don't know if the book is different from like the show, things like that, but that sort of stalker narrative, obsession, control, being preyed upon, all bad things, all very specific to women in most instances. Next, I have another Isabel Cañas book. This is Vampires of El Norte. I am obsessed with this book. The number of lists that I have put this on to talk about, I just will find any reason to talk about this book with you guys because I love it so much. In Vampires of El Norte, we are going to see elements of survival. We're going to see elements of identity dissolution, domestic entrapment, all kind of stemming from trauma, right? So this book is about two childhood best friends turned lovers, again, yearning. Not important right now, Eden. They go through something really, really traumatic involving a monster, a vampire. There's colonial violence just based on the war. It's written about the Mexican-American War, reclaiming identity. There's a whole theme of her family wants her to marry, someone that is is in her cast of the part of the cast system, and she doesn't want to. So, you know, there's just kind of a lot of different things, a lot of different themes going on. I found myself very frustrated for her a lot of the time throughout the book, but I loved this book for more than just these reasons. Oh my God, I love this book. Since we're on the topic of Isabel Cañas, we may as well talk about the third and final Isabel Cañas book that I have, and that is The Possession of Elba Diaz. This one came out this year. I 5-starred it. All of her books are 5 stars. I fucking love her. In this book, we are going to see, you know, possession, so bodily autonomy. She's losing control of her body. We are also going to see domestic entrapment. She is marrying a friend from childhood because they can kind of help each other out. So she feels like she's kind of tricked him into marrying her because she's getting something out of the marriage. So we've got domestic entrapment. We have surveillance. The surveillance piece stems from the church. So the church is very, very involved. The church is watching her every move. The families are watching her every move. So she really does not have, she's like sneaking around all the time. And then of course, survival, identity dissolution. Again, very much a world not made for her. So again, we're seeing a lot of these themes that we've talked about in this book as well. Read it. The next book we're going to talk about is my actual favorite book that I read this year, and that is Hungerstone by Kat Dunn. If you don't recognize this version, it's because it is the UK version. I was obsessed with how it looked. I wanted it in paperback. This is the US version. This book is so good. I would say that this book really hits all the themes, but I would say its primary theme is female rage. And again, this is my favorite theme. This is a gothic Carmilla retelling. We are going to see rage, desire. Vampirism is basically the metaphor for like, what do you thirst for? What are you hungry for? Again, we have that marital imprisonment. So we've got feminine rage, domestic entrapment, bodily autonomy, right? Because she doesn't really have control over her body. She can't have a child, all of these things. Survival. It's just a beautiful book. The number of highlighted quotes in here, I need to just read one of the quotes that will hopefully strike home for you guys. I learned quickly that my wants and needs were unwelcome, too great for any reasonable person to fulfill, and in time I came to agree with her. I was too much, too loud, too emotional, too clumsy, too self-involved. My existence was a burden to all involved with it, and I resolved to never make any demand if I could help it. Then perhaps I could be tolerated, then perhaps I could be loved. Are you fucking kidding me with that, Kat Dunn? Are you kidding me? Read it. It's an amazing Carmilla retelling. Okay, moving on. I can chill out. All right, jumping back into our girl, Rachel Harrison. So Thirsty. This is one that I was very on the fence about if I liked it or not, because the two characters in this book are wildly insufferable. That's the fucking point. There are people in life that are not likable and they still have a story. So I personally wouldn't be friends with either of the ladies that this book is kind of about. This book is another one that uses vampirism as a metaphor. We're going to see themes of feminine rage, domestic entrapment, bodily autonomy, and survival, right? Again, we're hitting 4 out of 5 themes in this one. The vampirism metaphor, if you will, is for desire, body reclamation, transformation. It's about a woman who is deeply unhappy in her marriage. Her husband is continually unfaithful. She keeps learning about it. She just learned again most recently on her birthday. Her friend takes her out to try to have like a nice weekend away, puts her in a dangerous situation. It's just a shit show, but really at the end of the day, this is about female friendship, and I really appreciated that about the book. So I was weeping. I was straight up weeping by the time I was done reading this book. Rachel Harrison, she does a great job. Last Rachel Harrison. Let's get Rachel Harrison out of the way so you guys can stop being annoyed with me. The most recent book she released was one that came out this year, and that is Play Nice. This is a possession book, but the house is possessed. It's not her. However, again, we do have themes of like trauma from childhood. We have domestic entrapment, identity dissolution, and bodily autonomy. We have a haunted home. We have family trauma, possession as inherited pain, essentially. This is literally in the description of the book, but essentially the book is about an influencer who decides that when her mother passes away, her mother who was estranged from the family, she passes away unexpectedly, and she inherits the house and decides she's going to do like these influencer like renovations, like flip the house or whatever. And so then she starts having these flashbacks to childhood. She gets into it with her family because everyone is like anti-mom. So it really talked a lot about like relationships with sisters and dads and stepmoms, and also, you know, there's the supernatural element. This book was really great. And again, I think Rachel Harrison does a great job. All of her books kind of hit on a different element of womanhood and the ways in which things are expected of them. And I think that that's why I really enjoy her writing so much. Okay, the next is Nat Cassidy's Mary. This book was so unique. Themes we're going to see: bodily autonomy, Identity Dissolution, Survival. This book is about a middle-aged woman. She is menopausal. She moves home to take care of her aunt who is very, very sick. And she is also haunted. So that, Bodily Autonomy thinks she is kind of haunted or possessed. She's not necessarily possessed, but she is haunted by this basically ghost of a serial killer. There's also a cult, which is kind of sick. It's just like very, I don't know. This book was really, really good. I think it really touches on the fact that as women age, they start to become unimportant and invisible to society. There's a little bit of body horror, psychological collapse due to that, mental health. This book was so good. It's kind of a fat book, if I'm being honest, but it was really good. I honestly might reread this soon. The last one I have on the list that I have read is Final Girls by Riley Sager. In this, we're going to get survival, identity dissolution, surveillance, right? It's about Quincy, who has survived a massacre, but with survival, everything else in her life is impacted by it. So she's really trying to move on. She's trying to she likes to bake. She has like a baking blog, but she has this like trauma and public perception of her. So she's always being surveilled because she was a final girl, dealing with her memories, dealing with people coming up from the past. So again, just kind of really kind of honing in on those various themes. I think that survival is probably the biggest one. Like, she has survived worse, so she can survive the things she's going through in this book. Okay, the last book that I have on the list is Night Bitch by Rachel Yoder. I have not read this book. I am dying to read this book, though. I actually have it. It's in the mail. It's coming to me right now. In this, we are going to get bodily autonomy. We're going to get feminine rage. We're going to get identity dissolution. This book is about motherhood and kind of this feral transformation that happens to this woman after she becomes a mother. So we absolutely are going to see some feminine rage, or at least that is my hope. That's what I'm going to be kind of looking for. And then I think sort of that identity dissolution, because she's sort of like losing herself in motherhood, like this transformation she's going through, I think will be very like metaphoric. So I am super, super eager and super excited to read that book. It's not on my 10 before the end, but maybe we'll make an exception, because who said I only have to read 10, right? I can read more than 10. Okay, so your first Hot Girl Horror 101 assignment is to pick one of the themes that we covered from today. I'll have them over here so you guys can look it up. Choose one of the books from the starter pack, or it can be a different one. It can be outside of that. If you have another book where you're like, wait, I think a book I already read has those themes, let me kind of reread that. Great, love it. And then what I want you to do is drop your pick in the comments, why you chose it. Bonus points if it is a book that you haven't read before, because again, I think that this journey I'm on is about learning and consuming to understand, not just consuming to consume. So I hope you guys will come along on the journey with me. And that's episode 1 of Hot Girl Horror 101. In our next episode, we're going to take a look at a different horror theme or genre or subgenre. Maybe something like body horror or slashers, or maybe just the final girl trope in general. Horror that interrogates social constructs. There's so many different things for us to look at. Maybe gothic literature. That's something I've been obsessed with lately. Okay, love you. Bye.